we don't really recognize our own self-worth. And I think that that's like such an important thing. In what you do too, in Urban Curiosity, it's like thinking about what really matters to us in every moment. Like as we're walking, okay, what beautiful thing can I notice about this day? What beautiful thing can I notice about myself?
I'm Claire Barry, and this is the Urban Curiosity Podcast, the show that inspires you to slow down and see things differently. Each week, I talk to interesting urbanites about creativity, human connection, and how to thrive in a city addicted to speed. Hello, and welcome to the Urban Curiosity Podcast. I'm your host, Claire Barry, and today I'm thrilled to have Susan Harrow as our guest. Susan is the CEO of prsecrets.com. She's a media coach and marketing strategist who works with everyone from CEOs to soccer moms, rock star wives to reality TV stars, entrepreneurs, authors, speakers, and startups to double or triple their business with PR by using soundbites effectively. Susan's helped clients shine on Oprah, CBS's 60 Minutes, The Today Show, Good Morning America, and in the New York Times, Inc., O, Parade, People, The Wall Street Journal, US Today, Forbes, Vogue, Bazaar, and more. What you might not know is that she's a black belt in Aikido and was almost sold into slavery by a Bedouin sheikh in Israel for 10 camels and a mule. Hello, Susan, and welcome to the show.
So great to be here with you, Claire. And you've got such a perfect podcast voice.
Hey, thank you very much. That means a lot coming from a PR guru like you, Susan. So I'm going to ask you about the Aikido and the nearly being sold into slavery later on in the interview. But for now, what I would love you to talk to us a little bit about is the significant city in your life. What is it? Which city is it?
I think it might have been Paris. We didn't actually talk about this, but yeah, I lived for a year and a half in Paris. And it was, as Dickens said, it was the best and worst time of my life because it was really, no one would speak. I didn't speak French when I got there. I almost failed my French classes. And when I got there, and then no one would speak English with me. And as soon as I could speak French, I took French classes there at l'Institut Catholique and the Sorbonne. As soon as I could speak French, everybody wanted to speak English with me. But so to me, every day in Paris was like an adventure. I would really pinch myself and say, I can't even believe I'm living here. And I would set up every single day to do something new in Paris. So explore a different part of the city. And because even in a year and a half, I didn't get through the whole city, of course, because there's so many things to do. And I think I never really did that in San Francisco in the same way. But I think when you're living in a new city, the idea is I want to take it all in and I want to explore everything. And I think what you do so wonderfully is like, okay, let's bring that same curiosity to the city that we live in and the city that we're, right? So we open our eyes. We have new eyes when we travel and we can have new eyes in our own cities where we live.
Absolutely. So would you tell us a couple of things that are really wonderful about San Francisco?
Yeah. I lived also in San Francisco. I lived in 3 or 4 different places in San Francisco. And I think the last place I lived was near the Mission and near Dolores Park. There's always some beautiful thing going on in Dolores Park, but I also loved that I would run every night and I would run through the Mission and stop at my favorite taco place, there, which is Pancho Villa, had these really amazing, it had a mariachi band. So they would have a mariachi band sometimes there on the weekend. The place was always packed and it had the best food. So that was sort of my reward after I ran, was to stop there and get a burrito. So what did you ask me? What's my favorite thing in San Francisco? I don't think.
Well, just really if there are, a couple of things that are really wonderful about it. I mean, you can also tell us your favorite things too.
Yeah. So I loved running around, even though it was an urban neighborhood. I really loved just running through the streets and seeing everything. And I think now, it's a little different now since I don't live there. But one of the things I do love to do is meet with Sherry Reichert-Ballou. She has a website called Simply Celebrate. And she and I often meet in the Mission, go to a Thai restaurant, our favorite Thai restaurant, which of course I can't remember the name of it right now. And then we sometimes go to this place that serves chocolate, Dandelion, which has all kinds of exotic chocolate things. And then we would go to Thrift Town and pick out clothes for each other. Because oftentimes you could kind of get in a rut with your own clothes, but we would find clothes for each other to expand our clothes vocabulary.
I love that. That's fantastic. And so where you live now is in the Bay Area, right?
I live in San Rafael, which is in between Sausalito and Sonoma.
Okay. And so I know that you love to go for a daily walk, Susan, and a big part of my work is encouraging people to get out for a walk and explore their city and really notice what's going on around them, and reminding people that you can find something new every day, no matter how quiet a residential street you may live on, no matter how dull and boring it seems and how routine everything looks. There's always something new to discover if you really look for it and really tune into your senses. Tell us about one of your favorite local walks.
Some people think that they need to do a different walk every day, and I do a couple of walks, but I have a few favorites. And here's the thing, it's the same walk, but it's not the same walk, because there's always different trees in bloom. One of the things I love to do this season is I have my favorite plum trees. There are certain trees in the area that have the sweetest and best plums that just plop their plums onto the sidewalk. I have a little bag that I always carry with me to collect beautiful fruit, because a lot of neighbors put out fruit for when they have an excess. And also the fruit trees just drop their fruit on the sidewalk. So I bring a little bag. And the plum season has just started. So I've been picking plums off the sidewalk, popping them in my mouth. Probably not very hygienic, but I figure I don't even wipe them off. I just pick, and sometimes, I must confess, sometimes the sweetest plums have already been pecked at by a bird or bitten into by a squirrel. And I just bite the other side. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to eat the whole thing with the squirrel bite or the bird, because I don't, just for disease sake, but I bite the other side because I can't resist. Like, this was the best plum. Right? And now, so the plums are out, and then there's a couple of apricot trees as well that have, I mean, you've never tasted an apricot like this. Never, ever. It doesn't taste like anything like the apricots in the store. It is the most magnificent apricot tree. So the other thing that I do on my walk is I know all of the local dogs, and they all rush up to me because they know me. I never feed them because I want them to come up and love me for me. And although I carry this little tiny bag too, where I put my keys and my phone, and they always think that there's a treat in there. So every dog has to put their nose in it, even though there's never been food in there, that they need to look and see, is there a treat for me? Is there a treat for me? So on my walk, I love the animal, the cats that I know that will come out, the dogs that rush up to me from their dogs' leashes. Oh, and my favorite dog, I have two favorite dogs, but the favorite dog is Daisy, and I call her Daisy Doo. She's this little corgi. I know the people who live in this house, they have their door open, so she and this other big dog, Mac, run out from the house to put their nose under the gate so I can pet them. And so I pet them through the gate, and she always rushes out to make sure that she gets petted on my walk.
That sounds so sweet. Would you say that this daily walk is part of your mindfulness meditation practice?
Yeah, one of the things that I do on my walk, sometimes I catch up on phone calls with friends, but most of the time I use it to pray and to sort through the day and think about, I always have a notebook, and I also have my phone. So if I want to record anything to the phone, I do. But I don't listen to music or anything. I have a paper notebook with a pen that I carry, and also the phone. So I get a lot of ideas. Sometimes I remember in my old neighborhood one time, I had my notebook and I was sniffing flowers. I used to live in Oakland at one point. So I would sniff flowers. I would write in my notebook. I would walk and walk. And this woman came up to me and said, "Are you a flower professor?" I said, "What?" She goes, "Well, I see you every day with that notebook, sniffing flowers and then writing in it." And I said, "No," I just love sniffing the flowers. I'm actually writing other things in it, other ideas, but she thought I was like a flower professor. So what I do is I have some meditations where I work on myself. And then there's a beautiful one from Dr. Brian Allman that I can share with you that's super simple. It's just you breathe in, you say your name, and you can say your first name and your last name. And you breathe out and you say what you want. So what happens when you're doing that is it creates a connective circle, because we rarely say our names to ourselves, and it creates something in the brain chemistry where you can connect it to a goal. So you breathe in Susan and you breathe out Grace. If that's something that you want. Yeah. And so sometimes I do that for the qualities that I'm working on. And then other times I work on like people that bug me. So I have a meditation that I do so I can send love and sort of get over that feeling about not liking that person or letting them bug me. So I'm working on that too. And then also healing old patterns or old things that still rankle me. I have sort of and then those are some of the things that I do while I'm walking. And sometimes I just walk and just space out and see what comes in to let it flow, sort of just let my mind clear.
I love that. That sounds like a really great thing. So Susan, if you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, what kinds of things do you do to try and bring yourself, in addition to what you've just talked about, what other practices might you adopt to just try and get centered again and just calm yourself down?
Breathing is the most important thing and sort of the most neglected thing. I remember this Zen story about a guy saying, "Oh, breathing's so boring." And the Zen priest grabbed his head, or the Zen monk grabbed his head, thrust it in a barrel of water, and held it in there. And then when the guy was blubbering and almost drowning, he lifted his head out. He says, "Now is your breath interesting?" Yeah, but really, I think breath is the thing that can control our autonomic nervous system quickest. And it's the one thing that I train all of the people that I media coach is how to control the breath, especially if you practice it ahead of time, even like 5 minutes a day, breathing in 10 counts, holding 10 counts, breathing out 10 counts, and pushing out all of the air, you will calm down your autonomic nervous system. It is a fact. It's the way that your body chemistry works. So that's the quickest way to calm down is doing that. Now, that's not so easy sometimes sitting. That's why I like to have people walk, because sometimes it's easier in movement. And the movement gets your endorphins going too. So that combination. So for me, a movement is the best way to calm myself. So I will go out for a walk. If I can't take a whole walk, which is what you asked me, I will go out into the garden. If I'm crabby or I've had a tough client call, I will go out into the garden. I will take my clippers. I will deadhead roses, just snip off the dead, the dead. I will deadhead around the garden, and I will also sniff all of the different flowers because it just makes me so happy. So just breathing in the air. And then I remember I sent you, it was too late for us after we came back from Bali, but I found that article about if you just put your feet on the actual ground, like on the grass, it will help you get over jet lag, right? I'm like, damn, I wish I would have thought of that. I was walking around the garden, but in shoes. So I wish that I had forgotten about that. I remember reading that before, but taking off your shoes and putting your feet on the ground, which is so simple. That's why I think we love, walking on the beach, putting our feet in the sand and in the water. We're just touching the earth, and somehow that shifts the whole body chemistry too into a much calmer state.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. And if only we had known, we might have avoided all that jet lag after our fabulous trip. So this sounds to me like that's a really super simple but really impactful tip that somebody, for instance, in a big city who's got a horrible commute might be able to adopt. And they may try the breathing exercises if they're seated in a train carriage, for instance, but that they might have more benefit from it if they're walking from the station to their office.
Well, one of the things I do too, like if they are seated on a train or in line in a long grocery line, is that's when I practice, like, so I'm crabby, right? Because it's like, oh my God, this long line, or I'm hot, or traveling, or you're in a state where, so to shift the crabbiness, I do a meditation where I send love and kindness to the people in the line. And I might choose one person, or I might start with one person and sort of create a circle between us, sort of a circle of energy between us, and people inevitably turn around and smile. So it's I've done it so many times that I know that people feel it because they'll turn around and smile at me. Or the other thing that I'll do just as a real practice is, especially at the dollar store, the people behind me just have like one item and I have like 20. Go ahead. Even if I'm in a hurry, I'll let that person go ahead because it makes me feel better, I think. Even if I'm in the hurry, I'm like, I just did a kindness. So I'll think about that one person, I'll send that to, and then I'll expand it to the people in the line, and then I'll expand it to everybody in the store because a lot of people are crabby. I'm not the only one in the store. So I do that a lot. I did that a lot in Paris on the train. And so I do that typically in public transportation. I do it when I'm stuck in traffic. So that's just a kind of practice to get out of the crabbiness, to think about sending that love and kindness to other people who need it, because we all do.
We certainly do. I think that's really beautiful and inspiring, Susan. I love it. I think many of us are living in cities where speed is the default setting, and any way we can just be a bit kinder to ourselves and a bit kinder to each other is always a wonderful thing.
It is. It really is. And I have another practice if I'm walking or anytime, especially in line. You know, when you look at somebody and they just annoy you and you think a bad thought to them. Whenever I do that, which is often, I admit, you know, it's still like sometimes initially it's like they just annoy you for some reason or they've done something annoying and maybe they are annoying or they've done something annoying. I challenge myself to find one good thing about them. So sometimes it can be even the most minor thing. It can be they look good in that shoe color. But I try to really challenge myself to see something deeper in them that's the good in them. So anytime I think that negative thought, I practice then thinking the positive thought and shifting it. So the negative thoughts come less. It's not that they don't come at all, because they do. That's just the fact of life.
Yeah.
But I challenge myself then to switch it to positive. And that always makes me feel better too, because I don't feel good thinking negative things toward people, right? That's sort of a catch-22. The more you think negative things about people, the more people are negative back toward you, and the more you get caught up in that negativity. So the more you switch it to the positive. And it's not Pollyanna-ish either. I just want to say that it's not about trying to stop the negative thoughts. It's about noticing that you've thought a negative thing and to shift it in the moment. So, I just thought that about the person that I don't even know. And can I find something good in them? And then that's the practice of always finding the good in other people and the practice of always finding good in other situations, even when it's difficult. Especially like when we were in Bali, sometimes we were so hot and crabby, and we had a shopkeeper who was like bitchy. Am I allowed to say that? It was like, we were hot and crabby, and then somebody was like pushy, or then we're like, we don't like them, and Bali, why are we here? This is so hot. Why did we even choose to leave our beautiful villa today? I mean, it starts this cycle of negativity, right? I should have just stayed home, and instead of like, let's go get an ice cream, or let's go get something cool to drink and like shift the situation.
Absolutely. So I'm interested in learning about how you came to become a black belt in Aikido.
Well, I started training with Richard Strozzi Heckler, who specializes in leadership, even for people like high in government. He does it for everyone. It's about leadership in your company, but also leadership in your own life. And that's kind of a long story how I found him. But let's just say I found him. I asked him to be my mentor. I started training with him in leadership and doing some personal work with him. And then at his dojo, I saw my first black belt test. Tessafe, who came from Ethiopia, was the first person to get his black belt and went back to Ethiopia to train gang kids and kids with AIDS. And I saw Aikido for the first time, and I thought, this is the most beautiful, amazing martial art. It just was so extraordinary. I had to do it. And it turns out that someone there introduced me to Hans Goto Sensei, and the dojo here in San Rafael is 5 minutes from my house. So I started training in Aikido, which was the most difficult and arduous and frustrating thing that I'd ever done, because I'd always been an athlete. I'm a former tennis pro and was captain of my volleyball team, number one on the badminton team, a jock. And I couldn't do Aikido for anything in the world. It was like, I have like 2 left feet, and it's 3-dimensional and up, down. And it was just, I was like the most uncoordinated person. And it was always like I was chosen last on the baseball team, because who wants to train with somebody who can't even, like, they would demonstrate something and I'm thinking, I have no idea what they just did. Like, I have no idea even where to start. So I really literally cried every night in my car, never in the dojo. I'd go to my car and just cry. I'm so awkward. Everything that I was working on myself sort of came up. Like every quality that I didn't like about myself sort of came up on the dojo floor. Bam, it's in my face. It's like the most intense therapy, because every day I'm confronting everything I don't like about myself that comes out. You can't hide your body. All comes out. It's all demonstrated. But for some reason, I really loved it. And nobody in my dojo ever thought that I would be a black belt. They all thought I'd quit. People confessed that to me later. I never thought you'd last. And I just persisted. And even though I did really literally, and I still have anxiety, by the way, about going. I haven't gone since I've been back, Claire. I'm like, oh my God, no, I haven't gone. I can't bring myself to do it. I still have a lot of resistance. It's the thing I love the most and I resist the most.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's because, you have to touch people, you have to interact with people, your bodies are up against them. Sometimes I just don't want to be in that kind of intimate situation. And it's still really hard. There'll be times where my sensei will demonstrate something and he sees the look on my face where it's just like, I'm thinking, I can't do this. and I want to leave. And he'll say to me, he'll read it and he'll say, Susan, you can do this. Or Susan, be brave. And I'll just want to cry and think like, I just want to go home. And I don't. And I never have. I sometimes go into the bathroom for a bathroom break just to breathe. And if I feel like I'm going to cry, I have cried in the bathroom, but I'm not crying on the dojo floor.
See, I find this incredible. There's this tenacity and persistence in you and a bloody mindedness almost that you keep going back regardless of all of the stuff that it has brought up, all of the challenges and the difficulties. You've loved it enough and you're persistent enough to push through those, even when it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, and it rarely does feel good. I have to say, because here's the thing. Every body is different. So you can't do the same move twice because each person is different, so you're actually adjusting what has just been demonstrated to each person who's in front of you. So it's not like tennis where you're just hitting a ball and you know the perfect place to hit the ball and you've done enough shots where you know the perfect place to hit the ball in almost any circumstance. It's just not like that because every person is different and every moment is different. So the challenge is, and there's very few times, even my sensei said, if he feels like he's done one throw in 100 that's good, he feels like that's a good day. So it's not like, so you're throwing imperfectly most of the time. You're attacking and throwing the other person imperfectly and pinning most of the time. It's because both of you are in motion. So you don't ever get a chance to gloat or be proud. Because if you do, in the next moment, you can be thrown down on the mat. So that's another great practice. It's like, oh, yay, I just did a good thing. No, you can't even go, oh my God, I had one good throw because the person's attacking you again and it's to your disadvantage in the moment. So it's a great practice for not judging what you do in the moment, just doing it. So that's the point about being present, because if you're not present, you can get hurt and the next move is already coming. So it's a practice of being focused and present, which is kind of exhausting every time. But the more I train, the more that time where I am focused and present is extended.
Would you say that this is a sport that a frazzled urbanite would really benefit from getting involved in?
Oh, yeah, because you can't daydream. You can't space out. You cannot. So it's so absorbing. And that's one of the reasons why I love it. When Will, my sweetie, got a staph infection and almost died, and he was in the hospital, for 2 months, Aikido was such a refuge for me. Because at the beginning of class, I'd be thinking about him and thinking about, okay, right after class, I'm going to the hospital. And part of the time he was in San Francisco, so I had to drive an hour to after Aikido. So I'd get home at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd finish at 8 o'clock and drive to the city and get home at 1 o'clock and start the day again, work for myself. So Aikido was such a refuge for me because I couldn't think about Will for those 2 hours. And even though he would pop in, sometimes it would pop in in between when sensei was demonstrating something or someone was demonstrating, it would come in and then I'd have to say, let it go and focus on the present moment because I'd miss what he was demonstrating. So it was such a relief to be not worrying and not thinking about what was happening to my sweetie in the hospital. So that was a refuge for me.
So that sounds like it was a fantastic release and refuge for you, thank goodness, during that traumatic time. But certainly something that is an idea anyone listening today in an urban setting anywhere around the world might consider exploring.
Yeah, and the other thing that's so nice about it is that Aikido is based on love and kindness. It's called the art of love and harmony. So it's really about doing the least damage possible to your attacker, but it's also about understanding someone's point of view. So in Aikido, we never stop a blow. We connect with it and redirect it. And then we use the other person's energy going in the direction they think they want to go to throw them. So it's very much about connecting with another person. And ultimately, the mindset that we're ultimately going for is that there's no separation between people. And you know the mind of your attacker because you're the same mind. And you are connected to the earth and the universe and all of that. That's sort of implicit in the training. I mean, we don't really talk about that too much, but we talk about how to stay connected, how to be more connected and closer to the attacker, because the ironic thing is the closer you are, the safer you are in Aikido, which is crazy. We all want to pull away and get as far away from the person. But in Aikido, the more parts of your body that touch the other person, the safer you are to get away and to attack them. So it's full of that kind of irony, but also, just the practice of it, that we're so much in our heads all the time, especially with computers and cell phones and that sort of thing, that this really puts you into your body. And that's one of the reasons why I love it too, because I'm such a thinky person.
So Susan, you just mentioned their attackers. I know that you have a really special and important program that you have been working on for some time that is important for anyone who is a woman or who has a loved one who happens to be a girl or a woman. You tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I've created True Shield, a verbal self-defense course for girls. And I called it True Shield because it's from a saying from O-sensei, the founder of Aikido. And he said, your spirit is your true shield. And that's why I named the course such. So it's for girls 12 to 24 to empower them to go through the 10 most difficult and dangerous situations that they'll be in and stay safe. So it's about role playing. It's about physically, even though I call it verbal self-defense, it's very physical. It's using your eyes and your face and your body and your voice. So you never get to a point where someone is actually attacking you. So it's a pre-self-defense course to protect girls and to train them to speak up in any situation where they need to use their voice. So we've even got a scenario where a girl is interrupted. What do you do when you're interrupted? When you want to say something and you're not being heard? So it's a practice and a training, just like Aikido. Like the more you do it and try different things, the more confident and calm and empowered you'll be. So we're now, the YWCA in Boulder just signed on. So we're in the YWCA and we're in a school in Marin. And the course is just getting launched. So for schools and organizations all over the world to empower their girls. And also I'm talking to shelters and domestic violence and sexual slavery, people who support the girls who have been sexually enslaved. So those are the kinds of organizations that we'll be working with.
This is such an important program, and I'm so happy to hear that you've had this success so far and that it's going to be reaching many more women and girls around the world. Particularly, I say that as both a woman and an auntie. I look at my two nieces whom I adore, and I want them to be empowered and to have the verbal tools and the knowledge to protect themselves and to, as you say, to avoid getting into these situations where bad things can happen.
And the thing is that every woman that I've talked to or anyone, they all say, I wish I would have had this when I was growing up. They all have the same reaction. Everyone says that. I wish we had this for me. And and some people have even asked me, can moms take it? And I think it would be a great thing for moms to do it too, because as a media trainer, one of the reasons why I created the course is because no matter how successful a woman is, even if she's CEO of a company and very dynamic, these issues are all the same. And I realized that media training women, that there were so many situations where a woman was afraid to speak up or afraid to challenge authority or to ask for what she wanted or to be portrayed in the media in a way that she wished she wasn't because she didn't know that she could speak up for herself and say, hey, I don't want to be posed with my cleavage out. And, by the way, I don't want to sit in that particular chair on my bad side or in a meeting, or no, that's a subject I don't want to talk about. To be able to say and to navigate how to redirect a conversation, even if it's a subject that you don't want to talk about. So I've worked intensively with women for 27 years on being able to give the message that they want in a media interview and to redirect a conversation where they don't want an interviewer to go. So that is all. I had been doing that sort of verbal Aikido with women for years. And then I thought, let's bring it to girls younger so they learn this. So by the time they are adults, they know how to handle themselves in any situation. They know how to say no and have the final statement. Gavin de Becker says, when a man says no, it's the end of a conversation. When a woman says no, it's the beginning of a negotiation. Well, let's stop that. When we say no, it's the end of a conversation.
Yeah, I really couldn't agree more. I think that's absolutely super important. And I can't wait to see how the program unfolds over the rest of this year and into next year. So one question I have to ask, because all of our listeners at home will be furious with me if I do not. Tell us, please, how did you almost come to be sold into slavery?
Oh, so I was in Israel with my family. I was with my brother, and suddenly this man, was very close to me, and he goes, "Is that your husband?" I'm pointing to my brother, and I say, "Yes." And he says, tell him, I want to buy you for 10 camels and a mule. And I'm thinking, excuse me? Right? And you tell him. And I go up to my brother and I say, we need to keep walking because this guy is trying to buy me for 10. It is a good price. You tell him 10 camels and a mule. And I say to him, I'm thinking that's not that much. It is a good price. You tell him. And it was really kind of scary to have him trailing after, like insisting that he's going to buy me for 10 camels and a mule. But I want to say that one of the things that even me at that time, I'm thinking, I am worth more than that. So what I want to say to everyone is sometimes we really think about, we don't really recognize our own self-worth. And I think that that's like such an important thing in what you do too in Urban Curiosity. It's like thinking about what really matters to us in every moment. Like as we're walking, like, okay, what beautiful thing can I notice about this day? What beautiful thing can I notice about myself? Because those are the kinds of things where that's a daily practice for me too, because just like everyone else, I'm so critical of myself, of my body, of my face, of getting old, of my wrinkles, you name it. So that kind of thing is also like a daily practice in being present to who you are and really what you want to accomplish in the world, because that's really where my focus is, much as I'm concerned about, and of course in the media, how I look and all of that. I think about that too, but really I think about what do I want to accomplish in the world, what's more important to me, and the other things will take care of themselves.
I really love that. Is there, just going to wrap up now, Susan, I'm going to ask you the final question, which is, what are you curious about right now?
I am curious about jujitsu.
Oh,
yeah. First of all, Aikido is so super hard. And I think I'm really bad at it. But what I'm good at, I can punch somebody in the face and knee them and do all of those things. Because I took another Aikido class, which was more street fighting from this guy who trained the military and special forces and all of that. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I can so do this. Because it was much more direct. So jujitsu is also on the ground. We don't train on the ground. We train throwing people on the ground and pinning them. So I'm very curious about training on the ground and also being able to do things that are more direct, that have more direct effect, that's more self-defense-y. Because Aikido, it is a martial art and it is self-defense. And as I said, it's designed not to hurt your attacker, even though the next step in a pin would be like a break, pinning someone, and then the next step would be a break. So it is, we never go that far, but so that's what I'm curious about. I'm curious about jujitsu, where I could do something a little more direct in self-defense.
Wow. Well, you're going to have to come back on down the line and let us know how you got on.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
Susan, thanks so much for being on the Urban Curiosity podcast today. It's been such a pleasure talking to you.
It's been so lovely, Claire. Thank you for inviting me. And I can't wait to come to London and actually do an Urban Curiosity workshop. Or have you come here to California and do one?
Well, I think we might make both happen. I can't wait.
That sounds great.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Urban Curiosity podcast. Get the show notes and more at urbancuriosity.co.uk/podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring, please head on over to iTunes now and subscribe. If the stories and ideas in the show moved you, please leave a review or a 5-star rating. Until next time, remember this: a curious life is an extraordinary life. I'm Claire Barry, signing off for Urban Curiosity.